We're starting on 37. 37a. Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph at a Mishnah. At a new thing. We should have for these charts. Just to so you'll know what we're doing here in the chart. So down the right, if you see the one that says Seder Tanaim V'Amiron, the one with the heading on it. So if you go down the right column, this one here, you go down the right column, you see the dates. What the first date is Librias Olam, so 3750 is from creation, and then on the left of it, you're looking at the dates of the conventional calendar. So that would be year 1, year 50, year 100, 150. You see that?
Yeah.
So then you go down, the next column says Hillel, Reb Shimon, Ram Gamliel, Reb Shimon. That you're looking at the Nesiim. The Nesiim, the Nasi, from the tribe of, descendants of King David. Okay. So that they sort of like set the dating here of where everyone is. So then if you go to the center, then you see the most important teachers. You have Rabbi Ben Zakkai and Rabbi Akiva. If you go to the next column, the next page actually, the other side, so you have, this is all Amirai. The first one was just Tanam, this is Amirai. And it's divided in half down the center. You have Amirai Eretz Yisrael, and you have Amirai Bavel. And Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is the teacher of both. As you can see the lines, even though they put him in Eretz Yisrael because that's where he lived. But he's the teacher, he's the last of the Tanam and the first of the Amiram. And then again, in the center, you'll see the main teachers. You'll have Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Vo and Rabba, Abaya, Rav Papa, Rav Ashi, those are them. Right? Okay, let's start. Oh, we can go through every, this is just so you know what you're looking at. Hashechet esem mesukenes. If someone shechts an animal that's in danger of dying, the Gemara, at the end of the Gemara today, we're going to see why we're saying that. What did it do? What is it not doing, and what is it doing that's making us say that? But it's about to die. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, when you do the shchita on it, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, "Ashet tefarches biyad v'regel." It needs to convulse, to jerk the its forearm and its leg, foreleg and its leg. The text here is probably not Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. It's probably Ram Gamliel. That's what the commentaries say. Now, what's the significance of that on our chart? Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is in the center of on the right side of the page. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is the father of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. So if he's arguing with someone over here, which he is, with a Reish Aleph, which we're going to say it would be Rabbi Lazar, which is Rabbi Lazar ben Shmuel, one of the students of Rabbi Akiva. Okay. However, if it's Rabban Gamliel, then he's arguing with the Reish Aleph, which is Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabban Gamliel, if it's Rabban Gamliel, it's going to change who the next person is, and it's just going to say an Aleph, so we're not going to know. Is it Eliezer or Elazar? If it's Elazar, then it's Rabbi Akiva's student, Rabbi Lazar ben Shmuel. That's in the Mishnah. Whenever it says Rabbi Lazar, it's that student of Rabbi Akiva. If it's Eliezer, then it's Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanes, it's Rabbi Eliezer the Great. Okay, so Rabbi Eliezer, I'm switching it to Rabban Gamliel, and Rabbi Eliezer Medayem Zinka. He argues. He says it's enough if it spurts out the blood. The blood spurts out by the shechita. That means that it was alive. You see, the question is, it's almost dead. Did it die at the moment that so you hold the animal or something, and then you're about to do the shechita. So if you say, okay, now let go and let's see, it's possible that it was dead already. So, but you didn't let go because you can't keep checking like that. So you actually do a shechita. Now you have to see, after the shechita, was it dead? Before the shechita or not? So if the blood spurts out, then it was alive. Amar Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says, Hashechet balayla.
We had this.
Interesting. We did have this?
Yeah.
Someone shechs by night. kshera. In the morning he wakes up, he sees that the walls are full of blood. Rashi says that it's not actually the walls, it's the walls of the neck are full of blood, so that's kshera. The reason why this put me off, because I was primed. I would just watch the shechita in the yeshiva, and the walls were full of blood. So when I read this automatically, I'm like, oh, the walls are full of blood. That's what I saw. So because it spurts out, it was all over the wall. I'm like, how are they going to get that off? But that's not what it means here. Rashi says it means the walls of the neck of the animal. So then it's kosher. Shazinka, because the blood spurted. What can mean this Rabbi Eliezer? And it would go according to Rabbi Eliezer. You know why this fits better? Because Reb Shimon Bar Yochai doesn't need to follow his contemporary Rabbi Elazar. He wouldn't have to say that. Why would Rabbi Elazar come first before Reb Shimon? And Reb Shimon is just a follower of Rabbi Elazar. So it must be it's Rabbi Eliezer. He's following it. It's 2 generations earlier. Reb Shimon goes back to Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenes. He goes back. He's jumping Rabbi Akiva back to. He's following Rabbi Eliezer. Okay. All of a sudden we have these charts. We need them. What would we do without it? The Chachamim say, Ad shetifarches, oy biyad, oy beregel. So this is our third opinion. First opinion is the hand and the foot needs to convulse. Second opinion is needs to spurt blood. The third opinion is that the most lenient, or a hand or a foot, oyat techashchesh biznava, or if it has to, or it shakes its tail. Wag, that's the word, thank you. Wags its tail. Okay, those are the 3 opinions. Echad behema daka, vechad behema gasa. This applies to a small animal or to a large animal. In other words, if the animal is sick, you have to check for these things. Or if it's dying, you have to look for these things. Behema daka, shapashta yada v'lei hechzira psula. The small animal that stretched out his leg, but it didn't return it. Is that considered that it did this motion? It goes out, but it didn't go back. Is that convulsing? It goes just one direction. That's not good. Because that's just the soul leaving. Now, we know the soul left. The question is, did it leave by the shechita, or did it leave without the shechita? So what was the... what we're looking for is that it left because of the shechita. So, and that we're not seeing. When do we say this? This is only if we knew that it was in danger. It was a sick animal. But if it was a healthy animal, even if it doesn't have any of these signs, kshera, it's kosher. You don't need to look for these things if there's no reason to look for it. You know, the doctors like to give, they like to do tests on you just because they get money from the insurance or something. Over here, there's no reason to look to do any testing if there wasn't sick. Okay, this is going to be a very interesting Gemara because the Gemara is going to play with the same thing. It's going to go back and forth, both sides of the rule. And you just see right from the beginning, you're going to see where it's going to take us back and forth. The Gemara says, "Misukenes mimai deshaya." How do you know that you're even allowed to eat an animal that's sick, that's in danger? So the Gemara says, "Mimai teisika daitin dasira," and why did it enter your mind to say that you're not allowed to eat it? So we asked the question, how do you know that it's mutter? So you said, well, why should we think it's asur? Now, we're going to go back and forth here. And it's really going to, it's like, this would be something that we would color code in green and in red, this Gemara. The whole thing, like which verse, which sentence is being brought for which part. The ksiv, it's written, Zaysa chaya asher techelu. This is the animal that you could eat. Now chaya means the living animal. Chaya achal, a living animal you should eat. V'she'ena chaya lo yisaychal. It's not living, you can't eat it. V'hamisukenes eina chaya. The Gemara is learning here that if it's a sick animal, it's going to die. It's not considered a living animal. It's not living. Maybe it's alive right now, but it's not going to live. So therefore, it should be forbidden. Okay, this we would put in red. This tells me that you cannot eat a misukenes, an animal that's sick. So now the Gemara's first question is a valid question. How do we know that you're allowed to eat it? We have a source that you're not allowed to eat it. So the Gemara says, because the Torah says you can't eat an animal that died, an unslaughtered carcass, michlal. Well, how did this animal die? It was sick and died. It could have been killed, but nevela was sick and died. Michlal, the misukena sharia. It must be that while it was alive, even though it was sick, it was permissible. Why is it forbidden? Because it died. Unslaughtered, it became a nevela. Right. But if it would have been still alive and you would have shechted it while it was on its last stages, while it was sick, then it would be permissible. So now we have, this we would color code in green, because now we have a proof that a sick animal is permissible, because it says a dead animal is forbidden to eat. The isal kadaitach misukenes asira, because if it would enter your mind to say that a sick animal is forbidden, hashta michayim asira, if it was already forbidden, well, how would I know it was forbidden? Well, because it says chaya, zois hachaya asher teichal. This is not a chaya, so you can't eat it. So in other words, I would have had a positive command. See, the positive command is this is the animal that you shall eat. From the positive command, I derive a negative command. This is what you should eat, but not anything else. In other words, you can't eat a sick animal. So if a sick animal was already forbidden, so then why does it need to tell me I can't eat a nevela? It was already forbidden even before it died. It got healthier when it died. If I would have shechted it when it was sick, that would have been forbidden. So now that it died, it became kosher. I didn't shecht it. It died. It was still, of course it was forbidden when it was sick. So does it have to tell me that after it dies, it's forbidden? So the Gemara doesn't conclude. But what that means to say is that it must be that a sick animal is permitted. That's why we would put this in green. Because if it was forbidden, then I wouldn't need to say the pasuk of nevela. So we would say that this is a proof that you're allowed to shech the sick animal. The Gemara says, well, now this would go into red. Maybe really a sick animal is actually forbidden. You said, so why do you need the pasuk of nevela? It was already forbidden before. If it was forbidden before, I wouldn't need the nevela. It must be that it's not forbidden before. The Gemara says, no. When it says you can't eat a dead animal, it actually means you can't eat a sick animal. How do we know what a nevela is? Nevela means an animal that's about to die also. It's both. Where are we holding now? We're holding that
right now it's usher.
That it's usher. It's usher. You can't eat a sick animal. The Gemara says, Leisal Kedaitach. You can't think like this. The Ksiv, because it says in the pasuk, this would go back in green, I guess. If an animal dies that you should have been allowed to eat, it's a kosher animal, and you touch the carcass, it talks about the tumah that it gives off of a nevela. Nevela gives off a tumah. So the Gemara says clearly, la'achar misuhu dekari rachman nevela, mechayim le'yekir nevela. You can't say that the nevela, when it says nevela, it's referring to a living animal. And then you would come out with that it's all forbidden. A sick animal is forbidden because it says nevela is forbidden. You can't say that. Nevela has to be after it dies. If that's the case, that it needs to be after it dies, a nevela is only after it dies, then why does the Torah need to tell me a nevela is forbidden? It was already forbidden beforehand when it was sick. It must be that it wasn't forbidden when it was sick. So this is a proof that you're allowed to eat a sick animal if you shecht it quickly. The Gemara says, we're back to the red. I'll tell you, really, it is the same thing. A nevela is the same as a sick animal. However, mechayim ba'asei, while it's alive, in other words, we're going to divide this up. While it's alive, it's going to have a prohibition, a positive prohibition, like we said, that chaya tells me that it's forbidden. And la'achar misa is balav. But after it's dead, it has a negative prohibition. So what did we do over here? We said that, why do you need to tell me that it's prohibited after it dies? It was already prohibited when it was sick. It must be that when it's sick, it was kosher. We say no. When it was sick, it was also forbidden. So why does it say that it's forbidden after it dies? To tell me an extra prohibition. But that doesn't mean that it was permitted before. It's giving me just an extra prohibition. So now we know that a sick animal is forbidden. Why is it forbidden? Because it says Zay Sachaya should teichel. So I can't eat an animal that's sick, only an animal that would live. Then it says you can't eat an animal that died. Well, it was forbidden anyway. It says, yeah, but it's forbidden. Now it's forbidden with a negative prohibition. What's the difference, a positive and a negative? Well, possibly if you get lashes. It's machlekes lava b'machlal, say a negative prohibition that comes out of a positive prohibition.
It tells you here the Pesukkim, I don't know if you want to hear. It says that if it's an imminent death while it's alive, you'd be in violation of mitzvahs aseh. It says in Vayikra, these are the living beings that you may eat. Whereas after its death, it would be in violation of a los aseh. It says in Devarim, you shall not eat any unslaughtered carcass.
Okay.
The Havamina that the person would have been able to eat it after it's dead is because we would think that the shechita was machshirit?
No, there was no shechita here.
Oh, there was never
There's
shechita?
no shechita. No, 1 second, I have to clarify.
So
We have, 1 second. We're discussing a sick animal that you rush in and shecht right before it dies. You want to salvage the meat. If it's going to die, you can't eat it. So we said, how do you know you're allowed to do that? So we said, well, who says that you're not allowed to? So we started to discuss why you shouldn't be allowed to. The reason why you shouldn't be allowed to, it says, the animals that you could, the living animals that you can eat, these are the living animals. So this is not a living animal, you shouldn't be allowed to eat it, it's about to die. So then we proved that, no, because the Torah tells me that an animal that died is forbidden to eat, that would tell me that while it was alive, it was kosher to eat, even though a minute before it died it was sick. It means I could have shechted it. So that's a proof that it's permitted. So now we're holding that that's not really a proof that it was permitted, because could be it was forbidden while it was alive as well, just not with a negative prohibition. So now I have a negative prohibition for after, and I have a positive, a negative that comes out of a positive from while it was alive. So we have another prohibition. Okay. Ella, so now we need a source why it should be permitted to eat a sick animal. Because it says you can't eat a torn animal. Now, a treifa, why is a treifa different than a misukenes? A treifa means that it actually has a physical, something is missing. It's something that has a hole in it. There's an organ that's missing, something that's visible. When you do the tests, you see something is wrong. On a sick animal, it could be very old, and nothing visible is showing there. It has everything could be intact. It's just weak and dying for whatever virus. I don't know. From it's a virus. So the fact that it says treifa, you can't eat. Michlal, this tells me, this implies the misuken sharia, that if it would be sick, it's permissible. The isal kedaitach, because if it would enter your mind misukenes asira, that a sick animal is forbidden, hashta misukenes, now a sick animal, d'lei machasra, that it's not missing anything. It doesn't have a hole in an organ. It doesn't have missing a liver or something. So and nevertheless asira. It's just sick. It's treifa mibai. Would it have to tell me that a treifa is not allowed to eat? So this is a proof that it must be that a misukenes, a sick animal, is kosher. If it was sick, I wouldn't need a pasuk to tell me. If it was sick and forbidden, I wouldn't need a pasuk to tell me that a treifa's mamish missing a limb. That's more of a reason to be forbidden. Why did it have to tell me that? It must be that a sick animal is kosher. The Gemara says, but maybe v'dil mahainu treifa hainu mesukenes. Maybe when it says a treifa is forbidden, it's referring to a sick animal. V'lavar alav basei v'leisasei, and it's coming to tell me that it's forbidden with a positive prohibition, and there's also a negative prohibition over there. The Gemara now quickly rushes back and says, "Im kein nevela dekasa rachman alamali." So why do I need a nevela for after it's dead?
Right.
Because you already have a positive and a negative while it was alive. What are you adding after it's dead? Does it have to tell me after it dies that it's prohibited, or it's already prohibited while it was alive when it was sick? The Gemara says, "V'dilma hainu nevela hainu treifa hainu misukenes." Maybe all three are the same. And v'laver lav b'shnei lavin v'asei, and it's coming to tell me that after it dies, there's an extra prohibition. There's two negative prohibitions. It's not a good proof. While it's alive, it had a positive and a negative. After it dies, it has a positive and two negatives. Doesn't tell me that it was kosher when it was alive. Elamihacha. We're going to learn from here. I say this slower. It doesn't mean that it's just getting easier. We're going to see. It says, "B'chelev nevela, b'chelev treifa, yasel l'chol malacha." The fats of an animal that died, unslaughtered carcass, and the fats of an animal that was torn, or that's missing something, you can do work with it. That means that it doesn't give off any tumah, even though it's a nevela. But you can't eat it. Talking about the forbidden fats. Now, the forbidden fats were forbidden fats even if you shechted it. He's saying it doesn't give off tumah. The fats, the meat gives off. So, v'amar mar, the master says, this is a Gemara in Zvachim, l'may helchasa. For what reason does it have to say that you can't eat it? It's forbidden fat. You can't eat it regardless of whether it died or for any. That really is not, totally unnecessary. So it says, Amra Torah. The Torah says, Yava Yisra Nevela v'yachal alisachela. It's coming to tell me something interesting. You see, does a prohibition, you would say, is it stackable? Can you stack up one prohibition on another prohibition? Like, let's say, eating non-kosher food on Yom Kippur or something, milk and meat together. I don't know if that's actually combined. But
the more serious...
Oh, so usually we say more serious ones could stack up, yes, or Maisef or Kailala, or if it's more inclusive. So, what the Torah is telling me here is Yava Yisra Nevela v'yachal alisachela. The Yisra Nevela, the prohibition of eating an animal that wasn't slaughtered, is stacked on the prohibition of the forbidden fat. So then now there's two. And Yava Yisra Treifa v'yachal alisachela. That's the way it has to tell me. That v'achal leisachlo. That's what I'm learning from that pasuk, that you're not allowed to eat it. And if you do eat it, you have two prohibitions. You have the Nevela prohibition, and you also have the forbidden fat prohibition. This is going to be a big sugya later on. In about 70 pages.
Something
For
we
him.
Can't wait. That's some good research.
Huh?
We've done some good research.
Right. So, okay. Now, the isal kadaita, and if it would enter your mind, treifa haina misukenes. That we're saying a treifa, that an animal that's missing some organ, or it has a hole in an organ, that's the same as a sick animal. That's what we tried to say before. And therefore, when we say that a sick animal is prohibited, we say a treifa, a treifa is prohibited, I'm referring to a sick animal. Okay, that would be the prohibition. If we would say that, Lichtev Rachmana, Chelev Nevela, Yeyasel Chal Malacha, that a Chelev Nevela doesn't give off any tumah. And then it should tell me, the Chelev Treifa Leisechlua. It only needs to say the fat of a treifa. Vanamina, and I would say like that. What we did in the pasuk is we said chelav nevela and chelav treifa doesn't give off any tumah, and you can't eat it. So regarding the eating it, it could say regarding the giving off the tumah, that would say by nevela. Regarding the eating it, it should say by chelav treifa. And vanamina, I would say like this: Uma mechayim, if while it's alive. Because a treifa is also while it's alive, according to the way we're learning. Asi is a treifa, the prohibition of treifa is able to be applied onto the forbidden fats. It's stackable, the prohibitions. La'achar misa mibai, on a nevela, does it have to tell me after it dies? Does it have to tell me that it's stackable? It's obviously, if while it was alive, we already had two prohibitions. So for sure, after it dies, it's going to have a prohibition. Ella, rather, midakasav rachmana nevela. The fact that it says that nevela is stackable on this mechlal, it must be the treifa lav haina misukenes. That the treifa is not considered a misukenes, and the misukenes is rather under the cat. Misukenes is the sick animal. Misuken means in danger of dying. So a misukenes rather would go under the category of nevela, not under the category of treifa.
But the definition of treifa is it's in danger of dying.
Right.
So how can it not be misukenes?
Oh, so we're saying this like this.
It's in danger of dying within 12 months.
Right. So what we were thinking that a treifa and a nevela, both of them are sick.
Right.
Now what we're saying is that a treifa is a different type of breed. Now it's an animal with a blemish, with an illness. That's like this handicapped.
Mad cow disease.
Yeah, it has this different category, but it doesn't. An animal that's in danger is not in that category of a treifa. Treifa is a different genetic makeup or something. Now the sick animal continues on to the nevela, but the treifa is something else. So therefore, if I was able to say that a treifa is the same as the sick animal, then I would be able to say that the sick animal is forbidden because the Torah says a treifa is forbidden. But now that I'm saying that a treifa is not the sick animal follows into being a nevela, which we know is la'achar misa. So therefore, I know that the sick animal is permitted, because or else it wouldn't have to tell me the nevela. It wouldn't have to tell me the treifa. The fact, the way out of this before was we said a treifa is a misukenes. A treifa is a sick animal. That's why it needs to tell me that a treifa is forbidden, because if a treifa was different than a misukenes, then we asked, why does it need to tell me a treifa is forbidden? If it's forbidden while it's alive, for sure it's forbidden, right? So it must be that the treifa, that it's permissible. That's what we said. That the misukenes is permissible, a sick animal is permissible. Then we said, but that's not necessarily so, because a treifa is a misukenes. So then we're back to a misukenes being forbidden. So now what we said is no, a treifa is not a misukenes, and we prove it from these verses here. So if a treifa is not a misukenes, then the fact that it says that a treifa is forbidden, then that tells me that it must be that a misukenes would have been permissible, or else it wouldn't have needed to say that. There's one flaw in this logic, at least to my the way I'm just reading it, Daf Yomi style, is that what we're saying is that if you separate the misukenes from the treifa, then what we say is that if it says misukenes, if it says a treifa is forbidden, it must be that the misukenes, that the sick animal is permissible. But also, why would it need to say a treifa was already forbidden while it was alive? Now, how do we get to that? the way we got to that was we had a problem. We could have said that a treifa is a misukenes, and when it says that a treifa is forbidden, it means a sick animal is forbidden, right? So now we say no. A treifa and a misukenes are two separate things. Treifa can't be a misukenes. We prove it. Once we prove a treifa can't be a misukenes, then how do you go back and ask the question that if a misukenes is forbidden, for sure a treifa is forbidden? It's not the same thing anymore. That's what you just. So that little point over there is unclear in our Gemara. The commentaries probably discuss that, but okay, that's the logic.
Mr. Kenneth is just like a sick animal, someone
Sick
that's
animal.
sick, close
Right.
to death, but it doesn't have to have any mum on it. It just be
Right,
as
exactly.
pneumonia.
Exactly.
But Mr. Kenneth, that's Mr. Kenneth. So
Right.
Sick,
And a
Mr.
treifa-
sick, get it?
Sakana. Oh,
Yeah.
sick. I
Sick,
hear it.
sick.
Very good.
And the treifa.
You want to come teach my class?
That's why he's sitting there.
And then there's a whole thing on the Uruguay meat. They used to do an operation on it. They all have a mum. They all have like an appendix taken out, but it's for
Right.
the stomach. That makes them not a misukenes because they're all alive for a couple of years born.
Right.
But they're all,
It would be a treifa.
They're all
if there's
treifas.
a hole.
and they're years away from death.
Right.
So there's no connection between a sick and
Right.
a
And a
sick
treifa.
animal and a treifa.
And a treifa not necessarily is actually going to. It's unclear. There's two opinions: treifa chaya, treifa eina chaya. If it's actually going to die, or if it's just the actual blemish. It's this assumption that it would die. Okay,
If the assumption is that a treifa will die, then it's a musukenes.
right. What we just did here is we said that a misukenes leads into a nevela. A treifa is a different category. That's what we just did here. Maskefla Mar Baravashi. Mar Baravashi. That's the question. Mar Baravashi is the end of this. Now, who's the law?
So this debate was going on for hundreds of years.
Yeah, but it doesn't say who the law is. We didn't have any name here. Who did he ask it to? Does it say who he asked it to in the Art Scrolls? Does it say who he asked it to? Maravash objected to this proof. It doesn't say.
No.
Maskefla. Interesting. Usually Maskefla means a asked to him. Or,
No, because the people who
or
were
that would be
debating were
Maskefle.
the people who were debating were a couple hundred years ago. You had no one to debate with. You just raised the question.
Is the Gemara Maksha?
I would assume the opposite. Because when there's no name, it's assumed that it's the later Amira that are discussing this. What's his name? Halivni. There's a Talmudic scholar in the university.